The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 31. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of real women producing extraordinary results by finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Get your free audiobook at our website at thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a special lady on. She is from Indio, California, and if you don't know of Indio, California, you might know the famous Coachella Festival because that's where it's usually held. And she is a social media manager, and she's just an awesome lady. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Sarah Romero. Sarah, how are you doing today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to the guests.
Sure. Hi, Sheena. Hello, guests. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I live in a little town in the Palm Springs area of Southern California called Indio, where Coachella Fest happens every April. What I do here is I do social media managing for small businesses. And initially it started out with offering those services to restaurants, since that's part of my background. But it's grown into offering those services to lawyers, retail outlets, and other industries as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And what is your cultural background?
I'm American. I grew up here in the U.S. in Southern California, but I am Mexican. So my grandfather is from León, Guanajuato, and my grandmother was from Colorado, but she also is Mexican. And they met when my grandfather was in Colorado, and they ended up eloping and moved to Southern California. And that's kind of the starting point of my family's history here in the Coachella Valley.
Sweet. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to ask you some questions. What's your favorite self-confidence quote?
I have a couple, but the one that I really, really enjoy and has been resonating with me lately is by Christopher Morley, who is an American novelist as well as a playwright. And his quote is, "Big shots are only little shots that keep shooting."
I love that. That's the first time I've ever heard that quote, but I love it, right? Because so many people aim high, right? And nothing's wrong with aiming high, but they don't realize that these little shots are also just as important to aim for that big goal, right? When you do the daily things, the small daily tasks, that's what, gets known. That's how you get the so-called overnight success, because people are building it daily, just simple little tasks being built daily. So I really love that you shared that quote. So thank you very much. And in your own words, how would you define self-confidence? For me, and self-confidence is about embracing your strengths and not being afraid to use them for the good of those around you. Personally, I know that's something that I've had to deal with over the years, growing as a human being, but also growing as a business person, is that I think that a lot of times, I don't know, and maybe this is the case for women as well, but a lot of times we tend to kind of hide our talents under a bushel basket where, we may, when we reflect upon them, know what our strengths are, but might not be the first ones to toot our own horn, for fear of coming off too aggressive or coming off very self-centered. And so I think there's a humble way to be able to acknowledge what your talents are, and then also share that with the people around you so that you can really benefit your community professionally and personally. So I think that's the definition of confidence for me, is reaching that point where you can say, you know what, this is what I'm good at, and I want to work with everybody in order to lend that to specific projects or life in general. Thank you. And I agree, right? I mean, as women, we're always told to not be showy, don't do anything too crazy, or people might think you're nuts. And, there's nothing wrong with sharing what you have. If you've accomplished something, share it. Because what if that accomplishment can inspire somebody else to take action in their own life and do the necessary actions to live their dreams. So, because I read this article on Goop, they're talking about how women have a hard time self-promoting because, they've been told all their life to be the good girl, not to rock the boat, not to make any noise. And I think that's the problem why women kind of struggle still in building a business, because of that notion that we always have to be the good girl and not say anything. So, it's time, to learn how to just promote yourself, right? And there's great ways to do that, right? I'm not saying that, you always do it and you do it in a way that's obnoxious. There's always ways to do it where people can come to you versus you chasing them. So thank you for that. And what was your life like before the discovery of self-confidence?
You know what? I'm a natural people pleaser. And maybe it's not natural. Maybe it's something, that came from my own upbringing. But I would definitely say that I'm a people pleaser. I had a really strong sense of needing to please everyone. Approval was my biggest source of self-validation. And because of that, I think a byproduct of it was that I overworked myself. I was working long hours several years ago, running restaurants and helping to open restaurants. And although I knew people thought I was good at what I did, I wasn't happy. It was kind of like, okay, I would accomplish the task, I would get kudos, but then instead of stopping to celebrate and acknowledge that, wow, yeah, I did do that, and this is, and acknowledging those are what my talents were, it was like, okay, put my head down and let's move to the next thing, so that we can show people that I'm still good enough, and so that for me was what life was like before really waking up to acknowledging my own strengths. And because of that, my family life suffered. I was suffering because I felt like a workhorse. So that's kind of what it was like before that aha moment.
I can totally relate, just pleasing other people. It's so draining, right? It just drains our energy because we're always thinking about others. And there's nothing wrong with thinking about others, but there has to be a point in your life where you have to learn how to think for yourself and do the things that you want as well, right? I know maybe we've been brought up to be taught to do this, right? Just please other people, make sure they're happy before you are, but sometimes you might have to be a little bit selfish on yourself, right? So what was that aha moment when you realized, you can't always please everybody?
Yeah, and I did want to elaborate too. Not to sound doom and gloom, because life was great. There was a lot of success, and there is something to be said for helping to hold each other accountable, to meet goals. So I think it is healthy to have within your perspective, the fact that you're meeting these goals because you're helping, as part of a team, but to have that people pleasing be like the primary reason that you do things, that's where, I think that you can start veering off into a really unhealthy place. And so for me, my aha moment happened at the last restaurant that I was managing. I got to meet some really great people, worked with wonderful people who were extremely supportive. And there happened to be a community of, we call them active adults, right? They're senior citizens here in the Palm Springs area. They're not senior citizens, they're active adults. These are people who have worked really hard all their life and have experienced a lot, traveling, working professionally. And so those type of people were our clientele at the last restaurant. And a lot of them were successful women. And I remember having a conversation with one woman in particular, and she'd come in, she was dining by herself, and we got into a really great conversation. And we were really enjoying talking about and sharing, where we had traveled. I enjoyed listening to where she had come from. As I had mentioned, she was a successful business person. She said something that really, really made an impact on me and stuck with me. She said, I lived my life making sure that, when I'm on my deathbed, I don't regret not having done something, or having made a decision that, didn't help me to live my life to the fullest. And I think what she was trying to do was encourage me to continue going down that professional path. I think her intention was to help to reaffirm that, this path that you're going down as far as managing restaurants and working really hard is the way to go. But what happened was that it really made me think about my personal life, because I was working really long hours. At the time, I had a 4-year-old son. I have a husband too, and I would leave in the morning at 4 o'clock to go open the restaurant. And most days I wouldn't leave any earlier than 7 p.m. So I wouldn't see them, and it really made me think about the fact that, what am I doing right now? If I continue down this road, could I one day be known as a really great restaurateur? Sure. But on the other hand, would I have lost the opportunity to really build a strong relationship with my family, those that are closest to me? And I knew that if I were to continue down the road that I was on, that I would regret not having spent more time with my family to get to know them and make an impact in their life. And so a little while later, I ended up just quitting my restaurant job, not for any other reason other than, the time. As a single person, restaurant The restaurant profession is awesome. I mean, I loved it. But as a mother and a wife and where I was at, I really needed to change courses. And so for me, that it was a scary moment, but I think it really helped me to develop my self-confidence, to say, you know what, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm going to quit this job because I know it's not right for the place that I'm at right now in my life. And so I'm just going to have the confidence in my own talents and in my own strengths, and I'll make this work. So long story short, that was my aha moment, that quote, that thought that woman had put in my head.
Well, I love it, right? Because a lot of people are afraid to make that leap of faith, right? They don't have that faith in themselves that they can make it out on their own. I was the same. I didn't think, well, if I ever were an entrepreneur, like, can I even make it? Like, is it even in the cards for me? And, then I realized if I'm working my butt off for someone else to make them rich, I mean, I could use that same energy on myself and create my own income, right? It's because we've been so conditioned that, we don't trust ourselves enough because we always have to seek approval or learn to please other people, that we forget that, we are worthy of a better life. We are worthy of things that we do want, and we can go out there and get it, whether it's becoming an entrepreneur or going after a better job, it's possible, right? You are worthy of it. Sometimes we just don't have faith in ourselves. So I'm glad that you took that leap of faith, because you were confident enough that no matter what happens, everything's going to be all right. So what's your life like right now?
Yeah, it's great. So once I made the leap, I decided to go ahead and go into social media management because I had seen the benefits of having an online presence on the various social media channels as a restaurant owner. So I went ahead and went that route. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I've been doing it since the beginning of 2013, and my business continues to grow. I'm at a place right now where, the number of clientele that I have and the longevity that I have with them has shown me that this is a feasible, viable business, and that I'm good at what I do. And so I'm at a place right now where the next step is really branding my business and getting a really strong support team and continuing to grow. And on the personal side, what's happened is that, I'm able to pick up my son at school. I'm able to take him to field trips, which is amazing. And then thankfully too, because of the clientele that I have, some of the jobs that take me out of town, I'm able to take my husband and my son as well. And so we're able to spend a lot of time together. And that's been probably the best byproduct of, having the courage to say, I have the skills to do this, so I'm going to do it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're able to have, the business that's doing really well and having that family time that you get, right? Because I think it's just as important to spend as much time, especially having kids, right? They grow up so quick. Literally, when you snap your fingers, it's like, where did the time go? So, if to the woman who's listening to this podcast, she's listening to your story, if you had one tip for her or in her own journey of self-confidence, what would it be?
Sure, it would be to not compare yourself to anyone else. I think when we compare ourselves to others, it's the biggest disservice that we can do for ourselves. Think about what would make you and the ones that you love most proud of the life that you lived based on your own strengths and your life circumstances. I mean, there's no one size fits all, right? So to understand the things that are most important to you as well, I think it takes time. You need to give yourself the time to think, rest, discern, which can be really difficult when we're constantly moving on to the next task. Or a project, or, even just, taking downtime for ourselves, but jumping onto Facebook. I think it's really important for us to give ourselves that break, to really consider what it is that's important to us, and to move in the direction of doing the things that would help to make your life what you want it to be. So, and you can't do that when you're looking at someone else's life.
Thanks for that tip. And it's so true. Comparing yourself to others is just the worst thing you could do for yourself. I mean, you just start feeling bad for yourself. You start thinking, well, I haven't accomplished that. And you have to realize you are in your own journey. You don't know the other person's story, what he or she has gone through. So, you focus on your own journey, you focus on your own growth, and, the results will show. So, Sarah, if somebody wanted to know a little bit more about your social media manager services, is there a link that we can connect with?
Yeah, there are two ways that you can connect with me personally, and I love meeting new people and finding out what makes them tick. So the first way would be to connect with me on Twitter. I'm at iHeartDates, which is just spelled out the word heart, and the word dates, as in medjool. I mean, living in the Coachella Valley, the date, the food is one of our biggest exports, and I love them. So it's at I Heart Dates. And then the other way is Google Plus. So you can find me at plus.google.com/plus Sarah Romero PS, as in Palm Springs. And that's a social media channel that I'm starting to use a lot more frequently and connect with marketing geniuses on. So I'll be sharing a lot more posts and information and great links from those marketing geniuses for anyone who's interested in the social media world.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that to the listeners. If you wanted to check that out, just head on over to the Tao of Selfconfidence.com and search for Sarah's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I just want to thank Sarah for taking the time to share her journey, share her story. And so, Sarah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was great.
No, it was awesome. But to the listeners, tune in to another new episode of the Tao of Self-Confidence, and we will talk to you later. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us at the Tao of Self-Confidence. Head over to the taoofselfconfidence.com for full recaps of every show, our amazing blog articles and resources, and just plain fun. Your inner journey to self-confidence awaits, so start today.